You have been with yourself every single moment of your life. Every morning you wake up and there it is. The familiar feeling of being you. The same person who went to sleep last night. The same person who remembers your childhood, your embarrassments, your proudest moments. The continuity feels so obvious, so undeniable, that you have probably never once stopped to question it. Here is the problem with that. The self you experience as continuous, unified, and real is not a thing your brain has. It is something your brain does. A process, a construction, an ongoing act of assembly that requires constant maintenance, that can be disrupted, altered, and in certain neurological conditions, can disappear entirely. And when scientists go looking for the place in the brain where the self actually lives, where the you that experiences all of this actually resides, they find something that stops them cold. There is no such place. I want you to hold that thought, because what I'm about to show you doesn't just change how you think about yourself. It changes what you think you are. And by the end of this, that might actually be a relief. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio at the University of Southern California has spent decades studying patients whose sense of self was damaged by brain injury. What he found didn't just challenge the science, it rewrote it. The self Damasio discovered is not a single structure or a single location in the brain. It is assembled from three distinct layers. The proto-self, your brain's ongoing map of your body's current physical state. The core self, the moment-to-moment feeling of being an experiencing subject. And the autobiographical self, the story, the narrative you tell about who you are across time. These three layers feel like one thing from the inside. They feel like you, but they are assembled separately, maintained separately, and can be damaged separately. Patients with certain kinds of brain injury lose the autobiographical self entirely. They wake up every morning with no memory of who they were yesterday, no continuous story, and yet they still have a core self. They still feel like someone. They still have preferences and emotions and a sense of being present in the world. Which means the you that persists across time, the you with a history and a future and a name, is just one layer of the self, a layer that can be stripped away, while the feeling of being someone remains underneath. So which layer is the real you? In 2007, philosopher and neuroscientist Thomas Metzinger at the University of Mainz published one of the most unsettling conclusions in modern science. Not unsettling because it was dark, unsettling because it was so carefully argued that it was almost impossible to disagree with. No one has ever been or had a self. The self is not a thing in the world. It is a model, a representation the brain generates of itself, and then mistakes for reality. Metzinger calls this the phenomenal self-model. Your brain generates a model of the organism it is running, your body, your mental states, your continuity across time, and presents this model to itself as if it were a transparent window onto something real. But it is not a window. It is a painting. And the painting is so seamless, so continuously updated, so perfectly synchronized with your sensory experience, that it never occurs to you to question whether what you are seeing is a representation, rather than the thing itself. You do not experience yourself. You experience your brain's model of yourself, and you experience that model as if it were you. Now pay attention to what comes next, because this is the piece that ties everything together. When your brain is not focused on a specific task, not solving a problem, not navigating the external world, it does not go quiet. A specific network of regions lights up with intense activity. Regions involved in thinking about yourself, thinking about other people, imagining the future, remembering the past, constructing a narrative sense of who you are. This network is sometimes called the me network, and it is most active when you are doing nothing in particular. Your brain's resting state is building you. Neuroscientist Marcus Raichle at Washington University first mapped this network and couldn't explain it. Why would the brain burn significant energy when it appeared to be at rest? The answer that emerged was both simple and staggering. The default mode network is the brain's self-maintenance system. It generates and continuously updates the story of who you are, integrates your memories into a coherent narrative, projects that narrative forward into the future, and maintains the feeling of being a continuous, unified self across time. The self is not something that exists and then the brain reflects it. The self is something the brain produces, continuously, actively, and with significant metabolic cost. This is why certain things shake the self so completely. Meditation practitioners who reach states of deep absorption report that the sense of self temporarily disappears. Not the body, not the sensations, not the awareness, but the feeling of being a separate self that owns the body, owns the sensations, owns the awareness. That feeling dissolves. And what they report in its place is not emptiness. It is something that feels paradoxically more real than the usual sense of self, more open, less defended, less effortful. What is happening neurologically is that the default mode network quiets. The self-maintenance machinery reduces its output. And in that reduction, the constructed nature of the self briefly becomes visible, the same way the constructed nature of a film set becomes visible when the lights go off, and you can suddenly see the scaffolding behind the backdrop. Now here's the question nobody asks out loud. Psychologist William James distinguished between two aspects of the self he called the I and the me. The me is everything you think of when you think of yourself. Your memories, your personality, your body, your relationships, your history, your beliefs. The I is the experiencing subject, the one who has all of those things, the one reading these words right now. Neuroscience has made enormous progress on the me, but the I, the experiencing subject, the one for whom all of this is happening, remains the hardest problem in all of science, because any description of the processes that generate it is still a description made by an I, for an I, experienced by an I. You cannot step outside it to examine it. You can only examine it from inside it, which means the thing doing the examining is the same thing being examined. And yet, even the I turns out to be generated, disrupted in certain drug states, absent during dreamless sleep, diminished by meditation, altered by anesthesia. The I is not outside the brain looking in. It is inside the brain's construction, looking out through a window the brain built, and then forgot it built. So what do you actually do with this? It does not mean the self is not real. A hurricane is a real event, even though it is made of wind and water and pressure gradients, rather than being a solid thing. A flame is a real phenomenon, even though it is a process rather than an object. The self is real in exactly the same way, not as a fixed, permanent, bounded entity, but as a living process, a dynamic construction that is sensitive to experience, capable of growth, capable of change. And because it is a construction, it can be reconstructed. The story you tell about who you are is not fixed. It is updated constantly by new experience, new relationships that give you a different relationship to your own history, new challenges that reveal capacities you did not know you had, new ideas that restructure how you understand what you have lived through. You are not a noun. You are a verb. Not a fixed point, but an ongoing process. Not something that simply exists, but something that is continuously made and remade by the quality of your choices, your attention, and your willingness to update the story. Look at where we have been across these videos. Your perception, constructed, your free will, questioned, your experience of time, invented, your inner voice, inherited. And now the self that held all of those things together turns out to be the most constructed thing of all. But notice what is still here: the awareness reading these words, the experience of understanding, the something it feels like to be you, right now, in this moment. That is not nothing. That is everything. And it does not need to be permanent, unified, or self-contained to be real, to be precious, to be worth protecting and developing, and bringing as honestly and as carefully as you can into contact with the world. Think about every person you know who seems stuck in an old version of themselves, stuck in a story that stopped being true years ago, defending a self that was handed to them by their history, their wounds, their earliest conclusions about who they are and what they deserve. They are not broken. They are not weak. They are just running an old construction, and nobody ever told them they were allowed to build a new one. You have been with yourself every single moment of your life, and now you know what that self actually is. Not a discovery that makes you less, a discovery that makes you exactly who you are. Go beyond theory.